Try something a little bit today. I have been, I don't know, I think about ways that we can uh, have more opportunities to get the word out, to preach. Uh, this is, I don't know, a building is not the only place we can hear about the word. And there are some people, Mary Marie reminds me sometimes that there are people that are maybe ill at home, or there's some other reason why they are not here and can't be here, and might want to have an opportunity. I have been recording. I just realized I wasn't doing that. I've been recording our lessons, and I'm gonna start videoing as well. See if I can make some value from that. Anyway, another lesson for another day. I've got this, I've got notes, but it's like, and I thought about this. I think, Tony, you mentioned something about fishing a few weeks ago. It's like, fish where the fish are. Okay. There's no reason for me to take my pole and my lures and go out in the middle of that field. There's just no fish there. And so sometimes we're going to, talking about how to bring the word to people where they are. People are not all here, and it may be a minute before they come here. We had a family event yesterday. We have, so many people. We kind of put together the summer birthdays, and we have the fall birthdays and the winter birthdays, So yesterday was summer birthdays, and my youngest grandson, Ollie, came to me. As soon as I got there, he said, we got you some fish, but they don't look like fish. And I thought, okay, buddy, I don't understand. And then his mom gave me a little present at the right time, and it was some new lures for me. And of course, he said, we bought you, Papa, we bought you some fish, but they're not swimming. And I thought, that was his way of looking at things. We have our outline today, and it's, I'm pleasantly surprised I may not have made enough outlines. So that's good. I'll be very happy to say I need to make more outlines. So let's fill up the building more, and we'll have more outlines to make. Thinking about things to remember, and we remember important dates. What caused me to think about that this last few days is I got a little notice that June 1, which today is June the 1st, and here's a shock to most of you. We are very close to half of 2025 being over with. I mean, it wasn't yesterday that 2025 began, and we're close to half of it being done. But we're on June 1st, and June 1st is Statehood Day for Tennessee. That's a good political position to be in. Now, we are unique in that we were admitted to the Union once and then again later. That's a different story. We remember political events like that. June 1st, when Tennessee became a state, late 1700s, I believe. Next month, we'll remember July 4th, which is a minor holiday right after July 3rd, the most important day of July. But July 4th, which is Independence Day, we remember that. I remember important dates that I had to write down, since I remember some important dates to me. July 17, 1982, when it's an exciting event. Coleman, what is that date?
You and my mom got married.
Yeah, that's right, your mom, as opposed to somebody else's mom. Work with me here, but I'm sorry. Yes, that's important. That's an important date. I remember October 15 of 86, when I became a father and Carolyn was born. I also remember some, those are pleasant events. I remember some scary events. When Carolyn was born on October 15 of 86, we didn't know anything about babies. This first one, and the doctor takes the baby, and then they just run out of the room. Okay, that's unusual. Come on aboard. My man, Lewin with his sunglasses. Come on aboard, buddy. But that, we didn't know anything about that. They kind of rushed off with the baby and found out that her first breath was, apparently she tore a hole in her esophagus. So it's like one lung wouldn't inflate, the other lung inflated about halfway. Very scary for us. But I thought, there are medical people here. They'll have the situation under control. I remember an event, Elizabeth was born and went to the doctor after first, a week or so, had lost a little bit of weight, an ounce or something like that, which not unusual. Then she lost a little more, and she lost a little more, and we wound up going to the hospital several times that first few months to develop some issues, but that was very scary. And those issues, they register in my mind, and I know that if I asked you all, there's things that you can remember, things that were very exciting events that you remember that changed your life, things that were very scary events in your life, and maybe traumatic, and they also changed your life, and you will remember. There are times that I think about that in the Bible. We're going to spend a lot of time in Luke, and I want you to go to the book of Luke. Everything we're going to do today is going to come out of Luke. I tell you some Sundays, get your spiritual track shoes on because we're going to move around a lot. Today we're going to stay in Luke. We're going to do a lot of reading. Look to Luke chapter 5. Jesus healed a lot of people. There are a lot of miracles that Jesus did. There are at least 37, if we can count up, different miracles that he did. But I wanted to focus on healing, and I wanted to focus on, in the book of Luke, Luke chapter 5, beginning in verse 12. Let's go to 12 through 16. While Jesus was in one of the towns, a man came along who was covered with leprosy. Okay, absolutely a life-threatening event and a life-changing event. It's going to be something that secludes him from the rest of society and potentially could take his life, but it would have a tremendous impact on him socially. The man was covered with leprosy. When he saw Jesus, he fell on his face to the ground and begged him, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Who else could have made him clean? Nobody. Verse 13, Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said, "be clean." And immediately the leprosy left him. Then Jesus ordered him, "Don't tell anyone, but go and show yourself to the priests and offer the sacrifice that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them." Now listen to what he did, verse 15. Yet the news about him, whether he said this or whether others were watching, and I thought, were others seeing this? Verse 15, yet the news about him spread all the more, so that crowds of people came to hear him and to be healed of their sickness. But Jesus often withdrew to a lonely place and prayed. This man is covered with leprosy and he's now cleansed. Do you think he remembers that event? I bet he could. I bet he remembers. I remember when I had this terrible sickness and when I was cleaned. I take from the story, from the context clues, that other people were seeing this. As I said, they told this news, this news got around. Did other people remember that occasion? Go to Luke chapter 7, a couple of chapters later. Luke chapter 7. Let's look at verse 11. Jesus is going around in his ministry. Luke chapter 7, verse 11. Soon after, Jesus went to a town called Nain, and his disciples, and look at this, and a large crowd went along with him. So now he's attracted attention. He's got crowds of people following along. His disciples and a large crowd went along with him, verse 12. As he approached the town gate, a dead person was being carried out. Now, is this an event with one individual? No, this is an event with a crowd. A dead person is being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And a large crowd, listen to that word, a large crowd from the town was with her. When the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her, and he said, "Don't cry." Then he went up, Jesus went up and touched the bier that they were carrying him on, and the bearers stood still. He said, "Young man, I say to you, get up." Now what happened? Verse 15. The dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. They were all filled with awe and praised God. A great prophet, this crowd is saying this, a great prophet has appeared among us. They said, God has come to help his people. This news about Jesus spread throughout Judea and the surrounding country. Now we've got a crowd. Do you think it made an impact in the mother's life? I bet it did. My son was dead and now he's alive. Did it make an impact in the young man's life? I don't know if he could remember dying, but I mean, now he's alive, and certainly everybody's going to tell him. Did it make an impact in that crowd's life? They surely remembered this thing that had occurred. Go to chapter 8 of Luke. Chapter 8, beginning in verse 26. We're going to read a good bit there. But another memorable event. Let's look to chapter 8, beginning in verse 26. This is Jesus and the disciples, they sailed to the region of the Gerasenes, which is across the lake from Galilee. It's a Gentile location, but they've gone across the Sea of Galilee. Verse 27. When Jesus stepped ashore, now listen to that. Did he get a chance to kind of get comfortable or something like that? When Jesus stepped ashore, as soon as he comes ashore, when Jesus stepped ashore, he was met by a demon-possessed man from the town. So this guy was from town. I'm sure everybody knew him. And we know they knew him because look at the next sentence. For a long time, this man had not worn clothes or lived in a house. He lived in the tombs. People knew him. What did they do? Verse 28. When he saw Jesus, the demon-possessed man, when he saw Jesus, he cried out and he fell at his feet, shouting at the top of his voice. This is not a silent, secret experience. He is screaming. He's shouting at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torture me." Verse 29. For Jesus had commanded the impure spirit to come out of the man. And I apologize. Listen to this as far as it's just going to be a memorable experience. Many times it had seized him. And though he was chained, by whom? The town tried to control him. Many times it had seized him. And though he was chained head and foot and kept under guard, he had broken his chains and he had been driven out by the demons into solitary places. Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" Legion. My name is Many. He replied, because many demons had gone into him, and they begged Jesus repeatedly not to order them to go into the abyss. Verse 32, a large herd of pigs were feeding on the hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Let us go into the pigs," and he gave them permission. When the demons came out of the man, they went into the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. Okay, let's stop there. Is this going to be a memorable experience to the man? Absolutely. He's been just running wild. He cannot be controlled. He cannot be, I don't know if there's any medication there. He certainly couldn't be controlled with chains and tied down or any way. He is wild. He's out of control because these demons are possessing him. And now he's free of those demons. It is absolutely something that's going to be memorable to him. And he shouted to Jesus, "Don't do these things to me." The demons shouted to him. I don't know if anybody else could see this, but let's keep reading and we'll find out. This large herd of pigs was nearby. The demons begged Jesus, verse 32. The demons begged Jesus to let them go into the pigs. He gave them permission. The demons came out of the man. They went into the pigs. The herd rushes down the steep bank into the lake, and they were drowned. Look at verse 34. When those that were tending the pigs, so there's a crowd. When those that were tending the pigs saw what happened, they ran off and reported this in town and the countryside. And the people The people what? The people who knew this man, the people who knew the craziness that was going on in his life, that went off to hear, to see what had happened. The people, verse 35, went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they found the man who they knew. They found the man from whom the demons had gone out, sitting at Jesus' feet, dressed in his right mind. And they were afraid. Those who had seen it, we know there were witnesses, those who had seen it told the people how the demon-possessed man had been cured. Then all the people of the region of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them because they were overcome with fear. So he got into the boat and left. Okay, was that a memorable experience? This man has lived in a cave. Other Gospels talk about him cutting himself. He is apparently running around naked. And he's possessed by these demons. He's screaming at the top of his voice. And now he is clothed and he's in his right mind. It's a memorable experience to him. It's a memorable experience to everybody who watched it. And we know that other people were watching it. And other people from town knew him. Okay? Another lesson for another day, the people, rather than say, Jesus, stay here and heal others, they said, please leave us. But that's another lesson for another day. They said, they asked him to leave, and so he got in the boat and left. Verse 38, the man from whom the demons had gone out begged to go with him, but Jesus sent him away. Now earlier, he said, don't tell anybody. This guy, he sends away. He says, return home and tell how God has done, God has done for you. So the man went away and told all over town how much Jesus had done for him. Now Jesus is going to perform another miracle. Look at verse 40. Now when Jesus returned, a crowd welcomed him. A crowd now, still a crowd. They welcomed him. Then a man called Jairus, a synagogue leader, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come to his house because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying. Okay, what would you do? Here, before this, the man that was demon-possessed had he had this demon, and he was certainly personally affected. Now, Jairus has a child. What would you do to save your child? No one else could save her. She was at home. She was dying. He comes to Jesus, and he said his only child is there and is dying. The second half of 42. As Jesus was on his way, the crowds almost crushed him. That tells you how many crowds were waiting when he got there. Verse 43. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years, but no one, listen to that, no one could help her. She came up behind him and she touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. Who touched me? Jesus asked. When they all denied it, Peter said, Master, the people are crowding and pressing against you. But Jesus said, someone touched me. I know the power has gone out from me. When the woman, seeing that she could not go unnoticed, came trembling and fell at his feet in the presence of all the people. There's a huge crowd, and she's there at least. In the presence of all people, she told why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. Then he said to her, Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. While Jesus was still speaking, remember, he's on his way to Jairus' house because Jairus' daughter is about to die. While Jesus was still speaking, someone came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. Your daughter is dead. It's too late now. He said, don't bother the teacher anymore. Verse 50. Hearing this, Jesus said to Jairus, don't be afraid, just believe, and you'll be healed, and she will be healed. When he arrived at the house of Jairus, he did not let anyone come in with him except Peter, John, and James, and the child's mother and father. Meanwhile, all the people were wailing and mourners for her, and mourning for her. So there's a crowd. He came with a crowd. There's a crowd at Jairus' house. Stop wailing, Jesus said. She is not dead, but asleep. Here's another lesson for another day. They laughed at him. They laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But he took her by the hand and said, "Child, get up." Her spirit returned, and at once she stood up. Then Jesus told them to give her something to eat, and her parents were astonished. But he ordered them not to tell anyone what had happened. I was thinking it's interesting. He ordered them to say nothing, but the crowd who was following along in the crowd who was mourning has just said, "We're in mourning because she's dead." They're surely going to notice this. You think it was important for that woman to be healed. No one else could help her. Jesus could help her. She had a condition that no one could do anything about, and Jesus healed her. Did she remember that? Absolutely. Jairus was in a condition where his daughter was going to die, and he came to Jesus. Jesus is the only one that can help her. He heals her. Does he remember that? You know, Jairus, I'm sure, remembered that. Surely people also remember these things. Let's go on to Luke chapter 9, verse 37 to 42. Jesus is there, and he runs up into he's in a synagogue. The next day when he came down from the mountain, a large crowd met him. A man in the crowd cried out, "Teacher, I beg you to look at my son, for he is my only child." Again, what would you do for your child? The phrase is, you take a bullet for your child. You absolutely would. You would do whatever it takes to save your child. Here this man comes to Jesus begging. He said, "Teacher, I beg you to look at my son. He is my only child." A spirit seizes him, and he suddenly screams. It throws him into convulsions, so that he foams at the mouth. It scarcely ever leaves him and is destroying him. I begged your disciples to drive it out, but they could not. Interesting that Jesus says this, "You unbelieving and perverse generation, how long will I stay with you and put up with you? Bring your son here." Even while the boy was coming, listen to this, think about what people saw. Even while the boy was coming, the demon threw him to the ground in a convulsion. But Jesus rebuked the impure spirit, healed the boy, and gave him back to his father. They were all amazed at the greatness of God. Do you think that father remembered? Oh, he remembered it. I bet for the rest of that child's life, he remembered. Nobody could do anything about it. It was destroying him. Jesus saved him. Maybe the boy remembered it. Maybe the boy could remember the times that he needed Jesus and Jesus healed him. Let's look to Luke chapter 13. This is an interesting story. Luke chapter 13, and let's look at this. Verse 10. I like to hear all my pages turning. That's wonderful. Luke chapter 13, verse 10. On a Sabbath, Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues. A woman was there who had been crippled by a spirit, and listen to this, for 18 years. She has been crippled for 18 years. She's been like this. Nobody could do anything for her. She's been crippled for 18 years. She was bent over and could not straighten up at all. Verse 12. When Jesus saw her, he called her forward and said to her, "Woman, you are set free from your infirmity." Then he put his hands on her, and immediately she straightened up and praised God. Now it's interesting, the Jews' response, chapter 14 or verse 14. Indignant because Jesus had healed on a Sabbath, the synagogue leaders said to the people, "There are 6 days for work, so come and be healed on those days, but not on the Sabbath." Of course, if she could have been healed by them, they would have done it before this. They couldn't do anything about it. She had a condition that no one could do anything about, that just confined her for 18 years. Jesus healed her. Don't you think she remembered that? The people that witnessed this, don't you think they remembered that? Let's look to Luke 17. Luke 17, beginning in verse 11. All these events Jesus is doing, surely the people that are involved remember. Surely the witnesses remember. Let's look at Luke 17, verse 11. Now, on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance. Why would they stand at a distance? Because they had leprosy. That was the law. They stood at a distance and they called out in a loud voice, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. When he saw them, he said, go show yourselves to the priest. And as they went, they followed through. As they went, they were clean. Verse 15, one of them who saw that he was now healed came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, were not all 10 clean? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except for this foreigner? Then he said to him, rise and go. Your faith has made you well. There's 10 of them now. I don't know if there's anybody else looking. I think where Jesus went, there was a crowd, but there's at least 10 witnesses, 10 people that were clean. Do you think they remembered? Surely they remembered, and any other witnesses remembered. Finally, let's look to Luke chapter 18. Luke chapter 18, beginning in verse 35. We're reaching the crescendo of Jesus' ministry. Luke chapter 18, verse 35. As Jesus approached Jericho, a blind man is sitting by the road. Now, could anybody do something about his blindness? Apparently not. There's blindness today. Sometimes there's blindness that nobody medically can do anything about. Here's somebody that's blind. As Jesus approached Jericho, a blind man was sitting by the road begging. When he heard the crowd, the what? The crowd. Okay. When he heard the crowd going by, he asked what was happening. They told him, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. So he called out. I don't think this is a whisper. It sounds like he's probably screaming. He called out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Those who led the way rebuked him and told him to be quiet. But he shouted all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. He's making a commotion, and he's with this crowd. Jesus stopped and ordered the man be brought to him. When he came near, Jesus asked him, what do you want me to do for you? Lord, I want to see, he replied. And Jesus said, receive your sight. Your faith has healed you. Immediately, he received his sight and followed Jesus, praising God. When all the people saw it, they also praised God. All these people are healed. All of them have a personal story and a personal blessing from Jesus. Surely they remembered. We would remember something like that, you think? Surely. And all those witnesses that were with him and all those crowds, surely they remember. But I have a tendency, and it's probably a human nature, of remembering something and then slowly kind of forgetting that event, forgetting the excitement and the thrill of that first event. And maybe people forgot. Maybe they forgot that it was Jesus who could heal them, that they had a condition that no one could do anything about, but Jesus could, and Jesus did. Let's look on into the book of Luke, chapter 22. Chapter 22, beginning in verse 47 and 48. It's those two verses. Jesus has gone to the garden. Verse 47. While he was still speaking, he's speaking to his apostles here. While he was still speaking, a crowd came up. Where did we read something about a crowd? Several times when Jesus was healing people, there were crowds. Now there's a crowd. A crowd came up, and the man who's called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He approached Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus asked him, Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss? There's a crowd now that comes to Jesus, and they come to arrest him. Was anybody in that crowd one of the people that Jesus healed? I don't know. Was anybody in the crowd somebody kin to or somebody who had heard the story of Jesus healing? I don't know. There's a crowd that comes to arrest Jesus. They did accomplish that arrest. Look to Luke 22, verse 54. Luke 22, verse 54. Then seizing him, they led him away. They've arrested Jesus, and they took him into the house of the high priest Peter followed at a distance. I'm not going to read the rest of the verses there. Peter follows at a distance. What do we know about that experience? We know Peter betrayed him 3 times, just like Jesus said he would do. But Peter betrayed him 3 different times. Read that story sometimes, and you'll find that Peter is with a crowd. Peter is not by himself in a field all by his lonesome. Peter's with other people. Because one person says, hey, you were with him. Oh, no, I wasn't. Later, another person says, hey, you're one of those disciples. Nope, not me. About an hour later, Peter's still with a crowd. Who is in that crowd? Is there anybody in that crowd that Jesus had healed? Anybody that knew about somebody that Jesus had healed? Anybody who had seen Jesus healing somebody? I don't know. Did they remember? Maybe they didn't. Peter denies Jesus in a crowd. Verse 1 of chapter 23. The whole assembly arose. This is after they've had somewhat of a trial with the Sanhedrin. Verse 23. Chapter 23, verse 1. The whole assembly, probably more of the Sanhedrin at this point, rose and led him off to Pilate. Okay, the assembly, the group, the crowd. Did they remember? Chapter 23, verse 8. When Herod, this is interesting to me, 23, verse 8, when Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly pleased. Herod was excited about this because for a long time he had been wanting to see him. From what he had heard about him. So what was that? From what he had heard about him. Herod, this pagan, Gentile, terrible person, Herod heard about him. Herod knew something, and yet there's this crowd dragging Jesus. From what Herod heard about him, he hoped to see him perform a sign of some sort. Herod knows, people know, and yet this crowd comes. The crowd drags Jesus there. Let's look at chapter 23, our final reading. Chapter 23, verse 13 to 25. Pilate is involved. We read this from this morning. Pilate is involved. Herod is involved. Verse 13. Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people. There's a crowd. And he said to them, you brought me this man as one who has incited the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence and have found no basis for charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to us. As you can see, he has done nothing that deserves death. Therefore, I will punish him and then release him. Pilate wants to get rid of this hot potato. Pilate says there's no reason for death. We need to return him. Remember, Herod has heard something about Jesus. The crowd has probably seen things about Jesus. But look at the response. Chapter 23, verse 18 now. But the whole crowd shouted, away with this man. Release Barabbas to us. Barabbas had been thrown into prison for an insurrection in the city and for murder, wanting to release Jesus. Pilate appealed to them again, but they kept shouting, crucify him, crucify him. For the 3rd time, he spoke to them. Why? 3 times now. Why? What crime has this man committed? I have found in him no grounds for the death penalty. Therefore, I will have him punished and then release him. But with loud shouts, who's they? That's the crowd. They insistently demanded that he be crucified, and their shouts prevailed. So Pilate decided to grant their demand. He released the man that had been thrown into prison for the insurrection and for murder, the one they asked for, and surrendered Jesus to their will. But we remember good events, don't we? We remember when people did something kind to one of our children. These people should remember. Jairus, there are many, many people that could remember. Jesus healed me. They no doubt told others that Jesus healed me. The same, I don't know whether it's the same people, but the same city, the same humanity is now saying, crucify that man. You know, certainly that would never happen to me in 2025. I'm just a lot brighter than that. Afraid not. Afraid not. In 2025, you see, I remember that I had a condition that that was spiritually diseased and affected me. Now we don't, this isn't time to say, here's my personal sin, but I can tell you that the book of Romans said all have sinned. Not just this guy and that guy, but all of us have sinned. And the wages of that sin is death. So we have spiritually a condition, and we had a condition that would bring about our death. No one could do anything about it. I couldn't go to Randy and say, he's a nice guy, wonderful Christian, surely he can help me with my spiritual disease. No, because Randy has sinned just like anybody else. I couldn't go to Doc and say, with all your great expertise, heal me from this. He couldn't do anything about it either. He is just as burdened by this condition. Only Jesus could heal me, and only Jesus did heal me. Well, I remember that. I hope I will. Will you remember that? If you remember what Jesus did for you, then will you deny him? Hopefully not. If I remember, and if you remember what Jesus did for you, how he cleaned you, then will you live your life for him? Will you every day say, what would Jesus have me to do today? Will you give your life for him? Maybe you're not a Christian. You need to take care of that today. If I'm not a Christian, maybe I'll give my life to Jesus and obey him. If I'm a Christian and I'm one of those people that did not remember, maybe I remembered the event, the cleaning that Jesus did for me, the healing that Jesus performed for me, and I forgot. And I'm now back in the crowd saying, crucify him, deny him. Maybe like Peter, just Jesus who? The same God that loved me and healed me that first time wants to love me and heal me again. If you are a Christian, continue to be, and I encourage you. If you're not a Christian, you need to be. If you're a Christian, you need to come back. Let's do it today. Tony, let's do it.
I've wandered far away from God, and now I'm coming home. The things I've stayed too long.